This is TWiT.
So as far as working with a team of developers on a very popular service, very popular app, how did you and the team feel about Android 12 when you got your hands on it? Were there any particular pain points? Were there things that got you excited about it? Like, what was the developer reaction to Android 12?
I think so. There are so many little changes in Android 12 that first we had to say, okay, what is the thing that is like the breaking change? What, like, we have to fix this just to make sure the app runs on it. And it's something really small, but I would say it's how they changed like the component exporting. So I wrote down a couple of little notes about things that I saw that were like breaking changes. You can't even build anymore until you update these things. So that was one of them. And that's tricky because even if you go through your app and you do an audit of every single thing that's using intent filters, it could be a third-party library that's bringing something in that hasn't updated itself yet. So some of the changes it's a little bit outside of your control initially, where you can just say, oh, let me fix everything that they're saying in their checklist that changes in Android 12. And then, there's a third-party library that hasn't updated yet. Either I can harass that developer or I can find a way to try to override it myself. So I'll say that's the first example of something where it was a little bit of a pain in the butt to like slowly try to upgrade to Android 12.
Yeah, it's interesting thinking about Android 12 through the lens of a developer and kind of what you prioritize, right? And I guess I hadn't considered that. With every OS change comes a number of updates, number of changes to APIs, all these, all of these different facets and everything. And you as a developer kind of have to take a look at each and every one of them and be like, all right, what is mission critical here? Not just from a perspective of like, oh, we'd love to support that someday. Like we'd love to really capitalize on that feature and our users would really benefit from that. But holy cow, this breaks this thing and we need to address this top priority. That's interesting.
Every release, it's always the same. It's like, okay, try to build the app. What breaks?
Yeah, right.
Next. One good thing
so
though. Yeah, go for it.
How much of that is like what breaks it and fix it versus it broke it, I need to rewrite it. You know what I mean? Like do you ever get to a point where like this changed so much that we need to go even back before it broke and readjust or re-architect?
I would say maybe before Android 11, that could be the case. Yep. One thing that they've done since Android 11 is they released this like app compatibility changes screen. So if you put your phone in developer mode, you can go to this particular screen in developer options for your app as a debug variant. And then you can say, okay, for example, turn on this new export restriction. And then you can turn everything else off for Android 12 except that. And now you can run your app and see how it behaves with export. And you can fix it one thing at a time instead of feeling like, oh no, I have all this stuff to change for Android 12. I have no idea what to start. You can like literally look at a list. It's a long list, by the way. But you can toggle it on one at a time and like, okay, I fixed that. Great. Now let me turn on the next one. Okay. Let me try this new permissions change. Got it. Now, like one by one. And I think that is just incredible that the Android team gave us this sort of capability as developers so that it doesn't feel as overwhelming. It's more like, okay, let's just tackle this one thing at a time and then we'll be where we need to be. And we have a whole year to get there. And I think that's more than fair.
Yeah. And you have a whole year to get there until we find out about Android 13, and then it all starts up from scratch, right? So basically,
and then you have to do it again.
Basically, how much of new versions of Android is just career security for you and your team?
Every new device.
Yep.
Oh, sorry, we gotta do more work there.
I mean, it's part of the wonderful. Part of the wonderful aspect of working in digital stuff is that it's never finished. It's never done. So
it's never done. It's never done ever. Yeah.
And there is never a point of relaxation either from the perspective of, you might be I mean, at this point, Android 12 is officially out. You're probably still hard at work on manicuring your apps, to kind of fit that properly. But I mean, in a couple of months, let's be honest, in a few months, we're going to have the developer, the pre-release, developer preview of Android 13. Actually, it's going to be Android 12L, which we've talked about. That's like on the horizon for December, from what we understand. But I mean, soon after that, it's going to be Android 13. Like, there's the way Google has its cadence of seeding these updates out, and then all the way out, 6 months later, it hits the official release, or maybe it's a little bit longer than that. There's no time to rest. You've always got something that's critical, I imagine.
You always have a maintenance track running. Like I always say, about 25% is some sort of maintenance or technical enhancements. So as much as the business would like to bring features, release new features, a lot of the work is going to still have to always be technical enhancements and maintenance for your product. Even I mentioned earlier, third-party libraries, those change every other day. So it's like, oh, okay, now we've upgraded. There's a new version of Dagger. There's a new version of Hilt. There's a new version of whatever. And let's see if this has any breaking changes for our application. So it's like a never-ending thing that you have to just account for when you're working in this space.
Yeah, that recently happened to me and my team. So Annyce, I have a small startup on the side, and we had a problem with the app, and we're trying to figure it out. And turns out there was a deep third-party library that was being retired, that we missed the notification on. We didn't see it. And so it was like a scramble to pull it all out and replace it with the thing that we had to, and all that sort of stuff. And it's just like, it's not just the code you write and not just the code that Google provides. There's a whole bunch of stuff in between. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's the programmer's woe. I mean, it's nice not to have to write every single thing from scratch, but now you're relying on another third party. So it's just like you have to sort of accept that risk.
Question that I have has to do with one of Android 12's kind of premier, let's say, features, at least as far as its consumers are concerned, and that's Material You and the theming engine underlying Android 12. And I'm curious, as we're talking about prioritization of things, if you are a developer on Android, and particularly, I imagine in your position, like you've got a team, like you have the ability to kind of scale up and do things at a larger scale than more so than a single developer managing a single app or whatever. But when something comes along integrated into the OS that Google says is, marquee feature, AKA in this case, Material You and this theming engine, how much of a priority does something like that take for your team? Obviously, you've got your functional priorities that are like, this needs to happen, otherwise our app breaks or whatever. But then you've got this thing that your app is going to run fine if it doesn't adhere to Material You, but users are hoping for more app support around something like this. Where do you stand there?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think back to when the Material theming came out, and if I look at our member application right now for Meetup, it's still not 100% on the Material theme. It's still using some app compat theming in certain very legacy portions of it. So when I think about Material You, I'm like, okay, that's cool. The color scheme is changing based on my wallpaper. That's very clever. I would probably focus on putting that in our new application for organizers that's built using Jetpack Compose, because I feel like the Material You theming library that they have for Jetpack Compose makes the integration a bit easier versus having to think through, okay, are we going to have to change all the style XML layout files and all these things to accommodate Material You in our member application, which is mostly using like the view system and XML to define these things. So it's like, as far as priorities, for one app, it's probably at the very bottom of things I care about in Android 12. And for another app, it's somewhere near the top where it's a newer application. So I think it would be cool if we could add some of the Material You things, especially since we're using Jetpack Compose.
Is there a point at which the app that it's lower priority suddenly gets to a higher priority for something like this?
It would
like what has to clear the way in order for that to rise up on an older app?
This is an easy answer. If Google says, we will give you better search ranking in the Play Store if your app has Material You theming. Or we will feature the app somewhere, somehow, if it has Material You theming. Then I'd be like, whoa, everybody, stop what we're doing. let's get theming
interesting. Right. That makes perfect sense.
What is the incentive for developers who already moved to Material Design to go to Material You?